Today's episode falls into the category of ergonomics. Ergonomics is about designing products and creating spaces that fit the needs of the user. So, looking at increasing productivity and efficiency and minimizing any discomfort. When we normally think about ergonomics, we think about the chair that you're using for work and whether that's really supporting your back or whether you're using a standing desk. But today I talked to Laura Wood from Invisible Creations. She's designed a range of products that are not only high on style, but they're really making a difference in the lives of people who are less mobile for any number of reasons. Laura made me really think about how we're not as inclusive as we should be in interior design. I really hope you enjoy it. Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Healthy Home Show. I have with me today Laura Wood from Invisible Creations. Laura, hello, how are you?
Hi, I'm really good, thank you. Thanks for having me.
Oh, not at all. It's fascinating to speak to you, actually. It was really nice that your guys bumped into us at Grand Designs, actually, and reached out wanting to connect and have a further chat. Because when I was looking into your website, etc., I was really impressed by the work that you do. Like ergonomics and movement is one of the concepts that we talk about quite a lot in the Healthy Home Therapist. And it's one of the core concepts of the well-being standard. So I was really refreshed to look at it from your point of view, because it's true that I find that we all talk about inclusive design a lot, but then actually when we drill down into it, is our design really very inclusive? So did you want to tell us a bit about Invisible Creations and how you started, and tell us a little bit about what makes Invisible Creations special?
Yeah, fab. I'm the kind of co-founder and director of Invisible Creations, and we've been around for I think it's about 6 years now. And it all came around. It was all inspired by my gran. So it's a very personal kind of story and mission and business for me, because I kind of saw firsthand some of the issues that she was dealing with in and around her home. Her home was kind of making her disabled rather than the other way around, because there was kind of steps to get in and out of the property, even though it was a bungalow. The bathroom wasn't very accessible for her. So it was witnessing some of the struggles that she had, but then also looking at what was available to help solve those problems that kind of sparked the business that we've got today. And a lot of the kind of products and services that you see for older disabled people, they have so much negative stigma attached to them. They're very clinical. They make people feel like their hospital is coming into their home. And my gran was a very stylish, dignified, young at heart woman. So she didn't want any of that kind of clinical stuff brought into her home. So that kind of sparked the interest for us of, how can we give her products that help support her mobility, help prevent falls, help keep that kind of choice and control and style and all those things that she wants, but give her something that actually really does help her at the end of the day with those needs. So we kind of started looking and playing around with different designs. We work with occupational therapists. So ultimately, we were trying to make a grab rail, but how do we make a grab rail look sexy? How do we make it something that we would aspire to have in our house rather than something that we reject? So that was kind of where we started the premise of the whole business, really. And it was very, very simple. So we've not really done anything groundbreaking. We've just taken something that already exists that people kind of hate the design of, and it isn't very inclusive, and made it to something that actually we can all benefit from. So when we talk about that kind of inclusive or universal design, we've looked at products that we all have in the home. So things like toilet roll holders, towel rails, shelves, things that we all use. And we've just made them more robust, more sturdy. So we've just doubled them up as kind of grab rail products, really. And I think the beautiful thing for us is that actually everyone can benefit from this, because we've all slipped in the shower at some point. You don't have to have a specific need to find a grab rail useful in that kind of wet, slippery environment. So what started as a very specific thing to help my gran has actually turned into something really positive to help a whole range of people, no matter what their needs or their age or their stage in life, really.
Yeah, because I was going to say, I guess it's not only the elderly that you're targeting as your audience, because it kind of made me think more about how well are we servicing the disabled community, for example, and just the kind of people who have difficulties with mobility, basically. And it's not just grab rails that you focus on, is it? I think you've kind of extended your product range.
Yeah, so we kind of started with the grab rail element, more so looking at bathrooms because that tends to be the place where kind of most slips and trips happen. And along the way, everything that we do with Invisible Creations is all around people-centered design. So we always work directly with anyone that would need these products. So all of the ideas that we get, all of the design work that we do, it's guided by what people genuinely need. We're not just going out and thinking, oh, this would be a nice product to make, let's just give it a go. We're steered and led by the people that really need these the most. And so we've kind of moved on from just doing grab rail products in the bathroom. We now look at how do we design the layout of the bathroom, how do we put things in the right place so that actually you can have that bathroom when your needs might be very little, but you can kind of grow with that bathroom grows with you, I guess, as your needs change. So it could be really handy for a toddler, but also it's really handy for someone in their later years as well. And we've also been looking at the garden. So that's been a huge thing for us and I think COVID probably highlighted this more than anything, is that access to outdoor space is so critical to our health and well-being. And that actually, just because you might have some issues with your mobility means that you might not be able to access that space that you have. We then started looking at how can we provide some products in the garden area so that people can get out to use that space, because we know that there's such a benefit from interacting with the outdoors. And we were seeing, crazy things where people were so determined to use those spaces. They'd be grabbing onto washing lines to get over from one end of the garden to the other. Really kind of scary, dangerous behavior, but it just, for us, solidified that we need to do something to kind of help support people that really want to use these spaces but are struggling with mobility. So that's been a real passion project over the last kind of 6 months, really, is looking at the outdoor space as well as the indoor space.
Yeah, fantastic. I mean, who have you found that's sort of adopted your products the most? Have you found that the elderly have leaned more towards adopting your products? Or, I mean, I was reading on your website, there was a nice story there with, I think it was a disabled lady in her 20s. And I really love the comment that she made that, or perhaps you made, that just because I'm disabled doesn't mean that I don't appreciate really good design, which really stuck in my head, that because it really made me think about how are the houses that we design still don't actually think about the people in them necessarily. It always seems that we think about form over function still when it comes to architecture and also interior design. I'm finding that so much with not just the ergonomics element to creating healthy homes, but a lot of the other elements as well, like air quality, for example, acoustics. It feels like suddenly, maybe after COVID a little bit, it feels like we're thinking more and more now about how actually the human within those spaces is affected and their health is affected. And it kind of makes you think, why is it taking us so long to kind of like realize that actually the homes that we're designing for people, we should actually think about the people in them. I'm just interested to know more about the young lady that was on your website, and any other personal stories that you might have that, apart from the lovely one about your grandmother, obviously, to illustrate kind of the differences you're making in people's lives and their mobility.
Yeah, I think that's been the biggest kind of sense of pride of the whole business, really, is when you go out and meet the people like Kelly, who we were referring to there, who is in her 20s. And I think a lot of the time with these accessible products, there's quite often forgotten in the design of them that there's a person at the end of this with personality and pride and dignity, and they want to remain in their own home with their own style, like their way. They don't want stuff forced upon them that actually is a reminder of things that maybe they can't do, or um, in the same way anymore. So that was huge for us, is that actually, Kelly is very huge character, huge personality. Her style is absolutely fantastic. And she wanted to incorporate that into her own home. So when she was looking for products to help support mobility around her house, for her, she was like, there's just one choice, a white plastic grab rail, and that does not define who I am. And it was for her, she didn't want that. She saw it as a bit of an intruder, I guess, into her home and her environment. It's this kind of alien object that is something that she found quite difficult to accept. So when she came across our products, where you do have a toilet roll holder, you do have a plant pot holder that actually you can personalize it into any way you want, whether that's a plant to suit the seasons. She actually got one put in her home where she's got a candle in it. So there's so many things that actually you can do to personalize these products that I think it's really helped people like Kelly kind of keep that autonomy of what they want their home to be. So it's been fantastic in that element. And I think Kelly was just a fantastic customer for us to work with, because it was really life changing for her, because she wasn't able to use her bathroom independently. But actually, once she got the products installed, that was a massive moment for her. She could actually use that bathroom space without someone else having to help her. She could be independent again. She could actually decorate it in the way that she wanted to, because there was a grab rail with a shelf where she could put her kind of Harry Potter kind of elements on there. So it was fantastic to see her personalize that, and actually just how much it meant to her daily routine, because I think we all take for granted some of the things that we can do on our own, but that's not the case for everyone. And for her, that was such a big deal to be able to have a product that, one, matches her style and her personality, but one, gives her the freedom to use her bathroom independently without having to rely upon someone else. So Kelly was really inspirational for us. And we're actually working with Kelly on her garden next. That's the kind of next thing we're helping support her with. She's just had a baby. So her and her wife are wanting to kind of like do a little bit more outside. So actually giving her the freedom to get out there to use that space with her family is kind of massive for her, really. So we're hoping to kind of have the next stage of supporting Kelly kind of later this year.
I love that, because also I think when you think about accessibility, the first thing that springs to mind is just like ramps or, into buildings, etc. Have you made any inroads into the workplace? Are you seeing kind of like clients come from the workplace environment as well, or just from homes and residences at the moment?
At the minute, it's primarily been kind of that social housing sector, where they've been looking at kind of making more homes accessible for their residents. And then kind of private homes really has been the big thing that we've been focusing on. We're doing a little bit of work with B&Q at the minute, which is really exciting for us, because it just means that more people get access to our products, which is just fantastic for us. That I think half the battle is that people don't have an awareness that there's anything else out there. People just have the stigma of the white plastic grab rail and think that I just don't want anything. Don't give me any products. Don't give me any support, because they just have this vision of something that is really clinical looking. So I think if we can work with some of these big retailers to change that perception and actually say it doesn't have to be like this, good design can be done in a really good way for accessibility. It doesn't just have to be something that's reserved for everyone else. So I think that's the biggest thing for us. If we can get some of these big retailers on board to just show the value of really good, inclusive, universal design, then that's massive for us. So we've not really done anything kind of in the workspace or like leisure or hotels, but something I've become obsessed with is every single place that I go, whether it's a cafe, a bar, whether it's a hotel, is looking at that kind of accessible bathroom. And the amount, even when you go to really nice hotels that haven't done it very well, it is quite astounding, really. So I think it's something that's on our radar for how come, again, we raise the profile for, just because you've got an accessible bathroom, it doesn't have to be something that looks clinical, really. So I think there's a big journey to go on, and I think people are more awake to it now than they've ever been before. So I think we're kind of banging on an open door right now. It's just, it will take time for everyone to get that awareness that there are more beautiful products that exist for accessible design, really.
Fantastic. And I think you're right. There is such a stigma, isn't there, around it? I'm just thinking of some kind of elderly family members that I know now, and they are totally refusing and in denial, basically, to put anything like this in their home, because I think well, not only do they not meet their design aesthetic, but also, as you say, it's a bit of a symbol of, okay, now I have to admit that I can't do this for myself anymore. But the problem is that that then leads into many more issues. I was only reading the other day how the kind of denial to accept that perhaps, you know, you're not as mobile as you used to be, or perhaps you're just you know, you've had a bit of a fall basically, and you're a little bit unsteady on your feet. But those those become much more serious issues if they're not kind of attended to.
And I think that's exactly what we're trying to push with this design, by making it something that's an everyday product that people have in their homes already. It helps with that future proofing aspect, because we quite often find that people will only get grab rails installed at the point of crisis. So actually, once they've fallen, once they've ended up in hospital, and really by then, if they've broken a hip, if there's some damage done, it's often too little too late, kind of putting the product in at that point. What we want to do is prevent those falls in the first place from happening. But that acceptance of having the products is very difficult with the clinical stuff that exists. But actually, if we're saying let's just normalize everyone having a grab rail in the shower, because we could all slip at some point, if that grab rail is in the form of a shelf or a towel rail or a shower riser rail, people will be way more accepting. So I think what we're trying to do is just mainstream having some of these products in people's homes, no matter what age you're at. We just want to make it really good design so that it's a desirable thing to have. But the added benefit is that it's there to promote your mobility and prevent falls and prolong independence. So, all those really great things. And I think one of the other kind of great bonuses that we found, really, that we didn't even know was an issue. So a lot of the time you'll see the white plastic grab rail on the outside of someone's home, because most homes have step access, especially a lot of existing housing. And what we found is that, I think there's a statistic, something like 43% of all doorstep crime is linked back to someone with a grab rail, a key safe, a ramp, because people will identify that there's potentially a vulnerable person living in that property by that grab rail on the outside. So they will target them, which is really quite a scary statistic that happens on such a high basis. And what we've found is, when we've gone and replaced those grab rails with some of our plant pot holders, the door knocking has ceased. So actually, they haven't been targeted like they had when they had the white plastic rail. So there's an extra element of that safety piece, that if you put something that doesn't look like a grab rail, that person's instantly feels safer in their home in themselves, but they're less of a target for criminal activity as well.
I never even considered the fact that, yeah, from a security angle, basically, from it looking like it's a house with a disabled or elderly person in it, that, I mean, it's terrible to think that that makes them more of a target, but well, it's an added benefit then of your product, which is amazing. I was going to ask you, so we covered like the bathroom. It makes obvious sense to have things like grab rails in the bathroom and outside the property. But if people are trying to design homes for elderly relatives, or maybe friends or family that they've got with mobility issues, what can they think about to put around the rest of their home? Presumably, you're not going to have grab rails on every in every room, but are there? Can they make use of other bits of furniture they already have, or because I think normally from an ergonomic point of view, I myself normally only think about the chairs and whether they're supportive for your musculoskeletal posture, etc. So yeah, if you wouldn't mind talking a little bit about the other tricks that we can possibly think about.
I think what we look at quite a lot is, we spent a lot of time just kind of observing and studying how people interact with their homes, because the one thing we found is what people tell you they do in their homes is actually very different to what they actually do. So they'll tell you that they won't grab onto anything, and that there's no tripping hazards and things like that. But actually, you'll observe the behavior. And I did it with my gran a lot, where she would be grabbing onto door frames, she'd be grabbing onto radiators, anything that was there, really, she would be grabbing onto. But obviously, those things are very dangerous in terms of the heat, in terms of trapping fingers. So what we started to look at was obviously a kind of our, how can we design things where it might be a shelf above a radiator that's got the grab rail element incorporated into it. So there's our products that what we did off the back of that. But also it was just kind of an awareness of the space and actually making sure that things are arranged in a way that there's less tripping hazards, that actually there's enough space to get around. There isn't a lot of hazards in the way that can kind of cause those accidents. Anywhere where you've got a change in kind of step, again, to make sure that there's something there to help support that. Because if you've got nothing around you to grab onto you, then that again can be quite a difficult place. Anywhere where you're going from like a seating to a standing transition generally can be the most dangerous places for falls. So again, it's making sure there's things around those areas. That's why the toilet area can be quite a difficult one, a challenging area, which is why we did the toilet roll holder grab rail. But any kind of seated place in the home, having something strategically there to help support get up from that. So if you do get a little bit lightheaded or dizzy, again, it's just looking out for where are those danger spots in the home and just making sure that there's nothing that's a trip hazard, and then there's something that's there to support you if you do get kind of a little bit dizzy or lightheaded, are the kind of key things for us really. We've been looking at kind of other areas of the home. The kitchen's another one that kind of can create quite a lot of hazards. So it is just about kind of that awareness. And I think we don't think about it every day ourselves, but once I started looking at what my gran was doing, that's when I started looking at my own home thinking, right, well, hers is fine to get around now, but if she comes to visit me, mine is definitely not. So again, it was kind of thinking, well, how can I make it more visitable for her to come here? And I ended up putting like our plant pot holder grab rail on the outside of my front door. So it meant that she could actually just come in herself because she could help herself over the threshold. So things like that, I think we forget. We really focus on making the individual's home accessible, but actually there is a real great benefit in making all of our homes that little bit more accessible, because it prevents those things, in terms of that social isolation and loneliness. If people can come out to visit other people's homes more, it makes a massive difference.
Oh, definitely. And I must admit, I feel like I've been a bit guilty of not thinking through design as much as I should have in terms of inclusivity and diversity. Because when I think about it, it's just, yeah, I mean, when you're able-bodied, when like you don't think about these things so much, but also from a sustainable point of view, I think it's great in terms of like future-proofing properties. Because as you said, you know, even from my work, which I do a lot around kind of making sure that if your home is set up for flexibility, so that maybe when your children leave home or whatever, now you've got kind of like two spare bedrooms, how easy is it to turn them back into offices? But yeah, I think from an ergonomic point of view, definitely being able to future proof the home so that people don't maybe go into care homes or into other homes with more help at a later stage, and it gives them kind of more years in their own home, I guess. Sounds like a brilliant idea. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think that's the thing. It's everyone wants to stay in their own home as well, don't they? Like you've spent years curating it to be exactly what you want it to be. You might have a community there that you don't want to move away from. The majority of people want to stay in that home that they've made a home. So actually trying to make it as adaptable and as accessible as possible prolongs that for as much as you possibly can. And like you said, prevents people, the really expensive social care bills. It prevents the NHS. It prevents bed blocking. So there's all these societal benefits to doing the tiniest, most simple little changes. It's not anything huge. It is just actually looking at the placement of things and having a few extra products in from the start. And if you're going to refurb your bathroom, thinking about it at that point, that actually, okay, I don't need these things now, but the likelihood is I might need them in 5 years or 10 years or 15. Why wouldn't I do this now so that it's very little disruption later on and it keeps me safe for longer? And I think one of the things we find that we meet so many different people along the way is anyone can be disabled at any point. So you could break a leg skiing, you could break an arm in the kitchen doing something. You can do anything at any point. So actually, again, it's just future proofing for absolutely everyone is just a sensible, smart thing to do.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, definitely hadn't thought about that of like, yeah, anything can happen at any time. What else do you think is coming down the pipe in design in terms of more inclusive and diverse design? Have you seen anything that you think will be happening in the future? Any new trends that you think we need to be paying attention to in this same area?
I think, I mean, we focus quite a lot on the kind of physical design, I guess, with the work that we do with our products. But I think one of the exciting things we've kind of got an eye on really is the technology side of stuff, because I think we're only just starting to scratch the surface of what the potential is for some of that stuff for kind of helping support us stay safe in our homes on so many different levels. And we'd love to be able to incorporate something into the design of ours in the future. But I think some of the things at the minute that we're really kind of blown away by are some of these gadgets that you can have in the kitchen, in the bathroom, in the bedroom, that kind of help keep you safe. So it is daft things like if you've left the hob on, and I say daft, it's not, but I think those kind of things that actually would protect us, and it's for everyone really. But if you've got someone who is more vulnerable or is elderly or has got kind of needs that extra kind of needs, I guess, then you've got something there that protects them. If you've got someone with dementia who, has left the house or has not got out of bed past a certain time, there's all these devices and monitoring things that can kind of spot those things. And I think these are just starting to come into play kind of quite recently, but I think the potential of those is absolutely massive for keeping so many people safe in their homes and preventing really serious accidents. So I think that's quite an exciting thing because they're not obtrusive either. They move away from that awful red cord that you used to see dangling down in people's bathrooms, the awful red button that people would have around their necks. I just think that people are finally getting the message that there needs to be more value placed on the design of these things. Like we said earlier, that there are people with personalities behind this, and we need to be designing for the individual, not for the need necessarily. So I think it's really exciting that there's a lot going on in this space now.
I couldn't agree more, actually. In fact, I was having an argument. I wasn't having an argument at all. I was having a discussion with Simon Jones from Air Quality Matters about air quality, and we were talking about how noisy bathroom fans are, and also how cooker hoods basically aren't very particularly useful, or I mean that they have the opposite actually effect. They're actually quite design-led cooker hoods. In fact, they look good, but they actually aren't very functional at all. Generally, I mean, some of them aren't even kind of exhausted to the outside. So his gripe was basically that the equipment that we have in place in the kitchen is far too design led and not functional enough. And likewise, a lot of it just makes a lot of noise. So and for that reason can make us quite tired. It affects our nervous system. And so, yeah, his gripe was basically with the functionality around these items because they are a bit of an afterthought, aren't they? I mean, it's like a tick box thing of yeah, we've got a bathroom fan, but is it just making a whole load of noise or actually doing anything? So yeah, like you, I think I'm quite excited of what's coming with technology. I'm not a massive technology fan, but I do think for these areas, particularly as you've mentioned for safety for people, I think it's something to look forward to, and I think there's a lot of innovations coming that look really really interesting. Um, Before I let you go, it's been a fascinating conversation. I really want to thank you actually for bringing light to this subject because it's something that I must admit I didn't think about that much beforehand. And I think it's great that we're starting to think about design beyond just aesthetics and think about everyone's health within the home. And even when we think about health, sometimes I think about air quality and water quality. And when it gets to ergonomics, I must admit, sometimes I get a bit stuck at, that your chair's comfortable enough to sit on. So it's been really enlightening, like listening to you talk about your business and how you created it and how you're really thinking about the needs of a really unserved portion of the population. So that's amazing. But would you mind telling everyone like where we can follow your work, where we can chat with you if you're on any of the socials? Where's best to connect with you?
Yeah, so we are across kind of all social media, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, etc. So it's just Invisible Creations. We've got a website, invisiblecreations.co.uk. And as I mentioned before, we're working with B&Q, so our stuff is on the B&Q marketplace as it stands. But what we're really trying to drive at the minute is to get them in store. So we're hoping, fingers crossed, that maybe potentially in the next year you'll be able to go in and see our stuff on display. But everything is online under Invisible Creations at the minute. And we're always looking for design ideas. We're always looking for feedback. So if anyone has got anything, then please to get in touch, because we're always looking to develop something new. So any particular need or anything that you've got, fire it our way.
Amazing. Perhaps we should run a competition around that sometime. That sounds fantastic. Well, Laura, it's been an absolute pleasure chatting with you. I've learned so much today. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And yeah, I'll be looking forward to chatting with you again in the future. Thank you so much for your time, and speak to you soon.
Thanks for having me. Take care.
Thanks for listening to The Healthy Home Show. If you like what you heard, please press subscribe or follow the show. And if there's anything you'd like to know more about, or if you have any specific unhealthy home issues, I'd love to hear from you. So please send me a DM over on Instagram. You'll find me at The Healthy Home Therapist, or over on LinkedIn at Charlie Lemmer. Stay healthy, and I'll see you soon.